There's a lot of money to be made right now with affordable housing, and I fear that what we're doing, even in this instance with Stuyvesant Charter, is taking low-income housing and making it affordable housing, which is a higher threshold, and still leaving many in our community without homes.
My guest is Michele Hirsch, the alderperson. What would you like? Alderwoman?
I like Alderwoman.
Aldermember?
Alder.
Alder. That's Rokosh likes that too. Alder. Well, alder. I think of the tree, of course, the alder tree, and so many words in the language have completely different meanings, including that one. Yeah.
That's appropriate too, because I feel like we have so many tentacles
That's
that
right.
go
You branch out from
Right,
there. Yeah.
right.
Okay. Michele is sort of in the midst of this controversy in regard to the housing authority having a private partner, and I gather from what you said that you don't exactly like that. You think that that's a bad way of doing business.
Well, I think there's a few issues here. My understanding is, and as more information is coming in from the attorneys, the way the one section Stuyvesant Charter has always been set up as a separate entity. What I'm concerned about is the mass change to privatization through RAD conversions that are happening throughout the United States, which is also privatization of housing authorities.
Where did that come from? What was the idea behind that? I guess to have private money invested,
right,
so that the public wouldn't have to pay that dime.
For whatever reason, HUD has historically underfunded public housing. And we were hoping that there would be money appropriated even under Biden, and it hasn't happened.
Right.
And so they made a pathway to convert the buildings so that they could be leveraged to then get private investors and use low-income tax credits.
Right. I guess in the 1950s and 60s, it was even earlier. It was the age of quite a lot of public housing, and Kingston had more than its share, or its share anyway, and that was something that the community was proud of because it served the lower income people in it. But that whole way of thinking seems to have gone down the tubes.
Right. There's a lot of money to be made right now with affordable housing, and I fear that what we're doing, even in this instance with Stuyvesant Charter, is taking low-income housing and making it affordable housing, which is a higher threshold, and still leaving many in our community without homes.
Yeah.
So the people that are now in emergency shelters will not be able to really get into affordable housing.
Right.
And they still need this low or very low income housing.
Well, right now with the sort of the burst of federal money and the larger than expected revenues, that's both state and federal levels, there's some money available, and some of it will go to housing experiments like tiny houses and some of the other things.
Right, and there's many communities that are taking their federal COVID money and putting it towards their housing authorities to pay, since HUD has historically not been funding, and then being able to keep the control locally.
Yeah, that's important too. And I gather that the housing authority had some troubles. I looked at what Tom DiNapoli had said about them, and he's pretty picky, but it was scathing.
It is scathing,
yeah.
And I want to be sure that we're protecting all of those units, and that a RAD conversion isn't the first thing that they're jumping to as a way out of whatever it is that they've gotten themselves into.
Right.
So I don't believe that the tenants and future tenants should pay the price of whatever happened there.
Right. Now, you work for Family of Woodstock,
Yes, I do.
which is, I guess, one of the agencies, not-for-profit agencies, that can deliver unique services, and in a whole variety of situations, any problem under the sun, as they used to say.
Right.
And Michael Berg has been instrumental in leading it for so many decades now.
Right.
So,
I've been working there. It's going on 8 years,
uh-huh.
and I actually work in adolescent services as what's called a family peer advocate, and that is part of the New York State Office of Mental Health System, and it's a service that helps families with youth 0 to 21 that are experiencing mental health or behaviors or developmental disabilities or juvenile justice issues.
How about drugs?
Yeah, all of it. And so the child is the identified client, and then we work to stabilize the family or achieve any of their goals, so that they can help their children. And through the years, the number one thing that I was finding, and our other advocates were finding, was families were going into emergency shelter and didn't have housing. Yeah. So the housing is the most important thing to stabilize a family, and that inspired me, to run for office.
I was talking once to the Social Services Commissioner, and I was impressed by. He said, "You don't steer people to a program. You ask them what their basic problem is, and you go from there.
What they need, and they know.
That seemed to be very sensible. Yeah.
Right, they know what they need.
Other even the sheriff is saying that now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think his Oracle program is great, and that also uses peer advocates within the substance abuse realm.
So, has the program evolved in the last 8 years that you've been?
Yes. It's been expanding throughout the state. They're starting to, at a state level, embed advocates, family peer advocates into schools, into the juvenile justice system. At this time, they're putting them into the child welfare system. Mm-hmm. We also have become a Medicaid billable service since the last few years that we're there, so we can serve families with both Medicaid and private insurance.
Yeah. I was meditating on family's birth because 53 years ago or so, we had a bail fund for kids who were coming to Woodstock and being busted. Mm-hmm. So then this guy Rush Harp, who had some money, would say, "Rush Harp to the rescue." And basically we had lawyers, we had some small funds, and one of the people involved was a woman named Gail Varsi, so this was family before there was a family. Yeah.
Right. I like that. Michael's got a great way of having out of the box thinking and seeing issues holistically, and then trying to find, ways to accomplish, solve those problems.
There are probably other organizations, but I associate family and RUPCO with that kind of thinking. Mm-hmm. That it's sometimes solutions are getting funding from a number of places for a number of purposes, and putting it together in a package and trying new things. We must be able to improve on the sort of structure we have now.
Right, and I think that another thing that's really wonderful about them is that the whole community knows who they are. They want to fundraise for them. New Paltz has the turkey trot. I lived in another county with a special needs child,
right,
and I wouldn't have known who to go to or what agency was there. I
noted that with the tiny houses that Tom Strozzieri, who's a great supporter of family, always has been, was instrumental, and found out that you couldn't just build a box and let it go at that. There were all kinds of things, kinds of codes to deal with. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now you also, your prime second job is as an alderman as an alder
in
in
Ward 9. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is your two terms, right? Both unopposed.
Yes, I just.
How come you down in Pocahontas somewhere, right? Somewhere near
No,
there?
no, I'm down off Broadway.
Okay.
It starts by one side of the high school.
Is that where the district begins?
Yes.
Tell me
yes.
roughly
And then
what
it snakes down Broadway and into the Rondout a bit, and then down into Wilbur. So it's really interesting ward because
okay.
we have three different parts of the city that were at one time different, their own townships.
Yeah. Well, I guess at one time, wasn't Ward 9, there was I think a Republican woman.
Yes, Deb Brown. Deb Brown.
Deb Brown, yeah.
Yes.
And she served, so she was, I think, the only Republican a couple of times.
I believe 3 terms. When I moved
yeah,
in, she was
yeah.
there. Yes.
Yeah. And that's do you know anything about how you're going to be redistricted?
I have not heard anything yet.
No.
So.
But probably since the population is around the same.
Little shift.
Yeah, it's probably, it may be similar unless there's some political purpose that Tom Hoffey has in mind.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out, yeah. You like being an alder?
I do. I really, I like people. I like getting to know people, listening to people. I like helping people find their own voice. And that's something that I do at work. And I think a lot of people are frustrated from the local level to the national level.
Yeah.
And I've had people reach out to me and say, because of you, I went and voted for the first time. And that's really inspiring.
That's good. Yeah. The more people do that, the better. Yeah. So politically, how do you kind of place yourself in that 9-person common council?
I think that I can be hard to read for them sometimes. Hard to read.
Okay.
I don't always take the position that everyone would expect a Democrat to take. I really evaluate things on a case-by-case basis. I'm really wanting to make sure that we're not overspending, and that money is being used wisely.
Right.
I don't know. I just.
Well, with a 9-person council and the one Republican really a Democrat, it leaves room for people for dissent.
Right.
And they can still get what they want. Are you pleased with Rita Worthington's promotion to leader?
Yes, I fully supported that, and I was really excited to have her take that position on, and glad to see that Rennie wanted to give an opportunity to someone else. I thought that was great.
Yeah. I would like to have her on this podcast sometime. So next time you see her, would you lobby her?
Yes, I will.
I think Rennie has already tried, but
okay.
So far we haven't connected, and I think she'd be great. Yeah.
So it was interesting because getting in, and just after like 2 months in, we went remote, so I didn't get to have a lot of face-to-face contact, and
so that's really kind of being in the same room as them all is a new experience to some degree. Yeah. And there's nothing quite like it. I don't know how people. I think the hybrid and distance life is just different from real life, and sometimes you miss the opportunity to exchange with people unless they're all there.
Right.
Yeah.
So right now we can meet, by committee in person, and we're just waiting for the equipment now for the council meetings to be.
The equipment, yes.
Yes. Which is one of those things I voted no on. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just felt like we had to, pay for our own equipment, at home, and our own computers and our internet, and cobble it together. And then to go back, it was going to cost $100,000, which just was a little confounding to me.
Is it going to cost that much?
It was that much money.
Wow, yeah. I know they were saying the county did it, and that works well.
Right, they had it already set up.
Yeah,
so.
Right. But the city is, and I guess the school district is proud of the way they do it, whatever that is. Yeah, but that leaves the city. It was sort of a little bit on the embarrassing side what happened.
Yeah, we've had some awkward meetings, let's say.
Right. in general, there's a kind of an awkwardness to city government. I don't know why. It may be that the mayor and the common council seem to have slightly different visions of their roles.
Mm-hmm.
How would you explain that? How would you express that?
I think that the council, I think that when they disagree with the mayor, they're trying to find ways to assert their role. And I think that by, really looking back at the charter and looking at the powers that we actually do have, that we can do that.
Yeah, I know that the one thing I thought that you did the right thing having the option to hire your own lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think every time you got involved with Dan Gartenstein, it was hard to make progress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think that that's one of the things, the way the charter is set up, we cannot have our own
Yes, right.
attorney.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is something that we should be looking at, definitely.
I love it that when you passed it, and by the way, didn't use it, he said that he was opposed to it, but he wouldn't vote against the budget. He wouldn't, he would.
The mayor, you mean?
Yeah, the
Yes.
mayor wouldn't eliminate it, so that it was the best of both worlds. He said his piece. You had the power to get the lawyer. Didn't get a lawyer. That's fine. Yeah.
Right. And I think it's an important mechanism for us to have in case we truly do have, a difference of opinion, and it becomes such that we need to have another opinion or learn what we can do.
One of the things I noticed is that there's a lot of talk about the city not having an adequate number of employees, or that some people leaving the city government because the pay was too low and various other reasons. I kind of didn't notice that. I thought that the pay, considering it wasn't too bad, and that it sort of smacked to me of the tradition that Kingstonians are entitled to city jobs when all else fails. There's something wrong there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they were paid. A lot of our employees, the CSEA employees, were paid on the lower end throughout the Hudson Valley area, and the mayor just did work out a new.
Yeah, I know. I think the result was quite
supported.
good.
Yeah, I was in agreement with that, because we want our employees to be able to afford to live here,
Right.
and be able to. That's what city government is. We have to deliver basic services. So.
Right. So you should compare it to other governments, because the benefit package is so important a part of the whole thing that it doesn't. To private to public is hard to
Right, and we were losing employees to the county and to the state, and we need our streets plowed. So
yeah, right. That's good. Yeah. How long have you lived in Kingston?
So I've been in Ulster County. I came up from Orange County, and I arrived. It's going to be 10 years, and I was in Sopus for 2 years. My children were in Kingston School District, and then going on 8 years that I've lived in the city.
How many kids do you have?
Two teenagers.
How old are they?
My daughter will be 18 and my son is 16.
So your daughter will be graduating this year?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, now you will have to worry about college.
Yeah. She'll probably be home for a while. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's an artist, and she's the reason we actually moved to Kingston. So we needed a district with more funding for special education, and so that is our reason for moving here.
Is education one of the important?
Yeah,
things
education and
in?
housing. Yes.
Yeah, education and housing. Yeah, it's true. It strikes me that if you don't take care of housing, it's very hard to make progress on anything else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have families that are living right now in emergency shelters spread out around the county, and the kids are bussed in and they're tired and they're not going to perform well, and our schools aren't going to perform well. And if we don't have a well-performing school district, how are we going to bring, jobs here?
Yeah.
And it just kind of all feeds into each other.
Well, Kingston has been doing a few innovative things, including the fairly large project at the jail.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the pace of trying to develop alternatives is adequate at this point?
Compared to China building a hospital in 10 days, no. But
no, that's not a fair comparison.
right, no, I know. But it's bureaucracy, and it's getting through various levels of government. But I know that they're doing the best that they can. Unfortunately, we had this housing crisis prior to COVID, and that just really amplified things in a way we could never have imagined.
Yeah, I discussed with a couple of guests the whole idea of fair share, that Kingston would naturally, being the city and having the biggest problem in a way, or the most visible problem,
right?
More share of the homeless, etc., would have more than its share. But the municipalities have a role to play, and there should be some way to define how they can accomplish their fair share,
right?
Whether it's accessory units or something else,
right? And that is something that I had introduced actually last year to the council, was the ADUs.
Yeah.
And was trying to get ahead of that before the state passed it.
Right, because when the state passes it, it'll be
right. So that we could be up and going, given our real dire lack of housing.
Yeah.
So
it's not home rule anymore.
No. So
how's it going? I understand that there's still some tweaks going on to the accessory.
Right. So Governor Kolkel had put it in her budget.
Yeah.
And she received a lot of resistance from Westchester and pulled it out of the budget. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a defeat, you think, or just a transposition to something else?
I think transposition to where it's got to be passed by the legislature.
Yeah.
So.
It is important, and there must be some way of doing it. I mean, I was never a great fan of a man's home is his castle.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the need for housing for the whole citizenry is more important than having your estate.
Definitely,
but
definitely. And I think accessory dwelling units are really important. And I think as people learn more about them, they won't be as scary. And also COVID, we had so many, unfortunately, people pass away in group homes and in nursing homes.
Yeah.
And these are ways that you can keep people out of congregate care and close by, and people can have, their young adults live close by, and, so that they can afford to still live in our community.
Do you have any political ambitions beyond your present job?
I'm just taking it one day at a time right now. So.
Yeah, I was interested in Phil Erner's election, and his support by the county executive, which was, that classes him as a kosher Democrat, I guess.
Right.
And that's kind of one way of dealing with it. And I've noticed that there's this slate of Democratic Socialists now. And if the Republicans are so weak, the Democratic Socialists become an alternative within the parties.
Right.
It's all different.
Yeah, there's a major shift going on right now, and the primary will be very interesting.
Yeah.
With the redistricting and.
Yeah, I don't think Kevin Cahill will have any trouble, but it'll be interesting to see. She got close to a third in the convention, I think. A quarter of which is to me quite a bit.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. Some homework to be done by everybody. Yeah. An interesting lady from Nepal. Her story is a good one too.
Yeah, she's interesting. I have yet to meet her in person, but.
You should.
Yeah, she's been actually knocking doors this weekend in my ward. So.
Oh, good. There you go. See? Yeah, that's that's the way politics ought to be.
Yeah, I think that people I should be challenged. Anybody should be challenged. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming
Okay,
by.
that was
It's
fast.
great meeting you.
You too.
And now I'll know when there are. Do you expect the what do you expect to happen tomorrow night in terms of that the pilot?
We're waiting for some information, so we'll see. But I have some questions as to the council's legislative authority per the state public housing statutes. So
yeah, okay.
So I have some questions into our corporation council about that.
Well, we folks out here are waiting too.
Okay.
Thank you for appearing on the Hudson
right.
Valley podcast.
Thank you for having me, Getty. Thank
Good.
you.